Hey guys, it's the Modern Einstein. I'm Mike here with a Science Talk segment. Today we're going to be talking about biology, and specifically in biology we're going to be talking about the cell and cell parts. Now in case you didn't know, you can follow us on our podcast, which is on our website. We have a cell series going on. We're on a podcast talking about the cell, how it functions. So we're starting out with the parts of the cell. So first thing that we need to kind of define would be what an organelle is. If you translate it, it literally translates to little organ. So you could say that all the parts of the cells, all the organelles of the cells, are the little organs that make up the cell. Now, the first thing I want to set straight that recently they just added to the biology textbooks because they didn't. It wasn't a rule. They just recently made this rule. When referring to cytosol, here's a keyword here. Cytosol is all of the fluid in between the organelles. So, as opposed to now what they call the cytoplasm, when we refer to the cytoplasm, this is now the whole everything in the cell in general. We refer to the cytoplasm. So again, cytosol is all the liquid in between the organelles, cytoplasm, the cell, organelles, and everything in general. So first thing we need to do is set straight, I guess the second thing we need to do is set straight the two different types of cells that there are. So first off, there are the prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. So prokaryotic cells have no nucleus and they have a chromosomal DNA strand that isn't bound by anything and it's not encased in anything, so it's just out there. So no nucleus. These are much smaller, and I think I have a few more facts here if you want to know for sure. The prokaryotic cells, we can see, okay, there's no nucleus. They do have ribosomes, but they're smaller. And these are going to be bacteria cells. And as opposed to our eukaryotic cells, they have a true nucleus, and inside the nucleus are DNA, and the DNA are bound, and there are a lot more organelles in a eukaryotic cell, and they're much bigger. These make up our protists, our animals, our fungus, these kind of cells, the major type of cells. So the eukaryotic cell, how I remember it, is the U part. It stands for like you and me. It's what you are made of, eukaryotic cells, as opposed to prokaryotic cells are strictly bacteria. So let's get to some of the main parts. Let's talk about the cell membrane. The cell membrane is the boundary of the cell. A lot of us might have known that. So what's so special about this cell membrane is it's selectively permeable. So what does that mean? If we break it up into the two parts that it is, selectively means, okay, well, it can select. Permeable means it can penetrate. So this selectively permeable membrane can choose what comes in and what comes out. And that's good because the cell doesn't want everything in and everything out. And it does this by means of vesicle transportation, channels to go in and out, and so forth. The membrane is made up of a phospholipid bilayer. What does that mean? Well, bilayer meaning there's two layers and it's made up of lipids. So what happens is the head of the lipid is polar, which means that it has oppositely charged ends. Okay, and the tail of the lipid is nonpolar. So what ends up happening is the tails attract and the heads repel. So the heads are on the outside and the inside there is the tail. So it ends up having two layers. That's the phospholipid bilayer. Next part would be the cell wall. This is going to be found in plants and fungus, protists, bacteria cells. It's rigid and protective. This is what gives a plant its structure. This is what allows it to stand up. It's located on the outside of the membrane. So the cell membrane will be on the inside, the cell wall will be on the outside. And it's made of a glucose fiber, the cell wall is. So the next part is something you're probably all familiar with, the nucleus. Okay, and like I said, it's only in eukaryotic cells, and this is control center of the cell. Really, it encases all of our DNA, all of the instructions for the cell, and it's pretty simple. That's pretty much all it is. It tells the cell what to do. It tells the functions that it needs to carry out. The cytoskeleton of a cell acts as the skeleton. That's kind of in the name, so it helps give this cell structure, and it also helps move organelles around it. So that's that. So there are a few more. If we look, a few more organelles. And another one would be the endoplasmic reticulum. This is often abbreviated ER. What this does is it's connected to nuclear membrane, and this is we could call it the highway of the cell. So it transports things. It's sending things through. So if we have a protein that goes to the endoplasmic reticulum, it's going to be transported through there, and when it gets to the end of it, it's going to be pinched off into a vesicle, because there's no direct transportation to the ER to our next organelle, which is the Golgi apparatus, which we will talk here in a minute about. So it pinches off a vesicle and sends it to the Golgi apparatus. Now the Golgi apparatus is also called a Golgi body, the Golgi. There's a couple different names for it. This is our packaging center, kind of the post office or whatever you want to call it. So it gets transported through our ER, then it goes to our Golgi apparatus to be packaged, and then it pinches off in a vesicle again once it's packaged and leaves the cell that way. So those are two key things to our cell. Another organelle, or not really an organelle, it's an enzyme actually. It's called the lysosome, and this is pretty easy to understand. All it does is break down waste. It's kind of like the saliva in your mouth when you're eating food or something. Another key organelle is the mitochondria. This is the powerhouse. This is where cellular respiration takes place, and it produces ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. This is how our cell gets energy, and it has its own set of DNA that can reproduce on its own. So that's pretty neat. So another organelle would be a chloroplast. This is found in a plant cell. The chloroplast is where the plant makes food. It makes glucose, and it also contains the pigment called chlorophyll. Now this is why a lot of plants are green, because chlorophyll, this pigment, makes it green. Again, that's only found in plant cells. And our last organelle is the centriole. Now the centriole is made up of microtubules, and so these microtubules wind together and make up a centriole. What the centriole does is it basically moves things around in the cell. It plays a key part in cell division. It'll latch onto the cell and help rip it apart to divide. So those are your structures of the cell. If you're in a biology class or an advanced biology class, this would have covered one chapter. Looks like we're running about 10 minutes. It's pretty good. So if you have any questions, email us or comment on the video. We always check our email, so that's always the best way to get a hold of us and ask questions. I hope to see you guys later on in the series, and check out our podcast on our website. We have the link on our channel. Thanks, guys.